Today's story was written by Reddit user Simpleton025. Are you awake? You gotta wake up, silly. A voice called to me, a woman's voice, a familiar voice, soft and beautiful, like a song. I lay on my back, my face looking up at the pale ceiling. Come on, I know you can hear me. Your eyes are open. She spoke again. Was it? No. How? I turned my head ever so slowly to my left. It was her. How? Joan? She smiled. That beautiful smile. How could I forget it? How could I forget her long black hair and emerald eyes? Eyes that I could drown in if I stared too long. Did you forget who you spent the night with? She playfully asked me. Am I really so much like the other girls? I couldn't help but crack a smile. What other girls? She giggled and kissed me. Her soft lips pressing into mine, so passionate, so loving. When they parted, she brought her hand to the side of my face. She stared into my eyes with worry. Are you all right? She asked me. I took her hand into mine. It was so small and soft compared to my palm. Yes, I'm good. Great even. You're here. She smiled again. I could look at her all day. She cuddled close to me, her body pressing into mine and her head laying on my chest. Her hair smelled so nice, and it was so soft to the touch. My finger massaged her scalp as she playfully scratched my chest. We were like polar opposites. I was taller, broader, scarred. My skin was rough and in some cases, ugly. My tattoos were horrid. Lines counting the jobs I carried out. Daggers on my forearms to show how lethal my fists were. A target on my heart, an invitation saying, go ahead, stab the heart, it's that simple. A giant cross on my back with the Latin phrase, sis vis pacem para bellum. If you want peace, prepare for war. Ironic considering my line of work. I hated myself for it, for all of it, for all that I've done and become, and yet she never once turned her back on me. Good God, she was beautiful, a curvy figure with soft skin, toned but not firm, no scars or ink. She was pure, she was innocent. Her blood wasn't, but I didn't care. I'm glad we're here, she said. I wish we could stay like this forever. Me too. But you know your dad. I don't care what he thinks or says. She cut me off, her voice shifting in tone. Please, let's not talk about it. Joan, Please, Adrian. She started crying a little. I don't want him in this. Not in this. Please. I didn't speak as she cried. It was the only thing that could break my heart. I couldn't let it go on. I raised us both until I was sitting up straight with her in my lap. I dried her tears and kissed her forehead. Alright, I won't bring him up anymore, I promise. She nestled her head on my chest again, and I held her firmly but gently. I wanted to protect her, to care for her, to love her, like she loves me. We can stay like this as long as you want, I said as softly as I could. She raised her head and caressed my face. No, we can't. You still have to wake up. I frowned. I'm awake. I'm with you. No, you're not. You need to wake up. I shook my head and held her tighter. No. Wake up, Adrian. Wake up. Wake up now. I opened my eyes again and jolted upward, grabbing the thing closest to me. It turned out that the thing closest to me wasn't a thing, it was a person. Well, something like one. One of those toad aliens was shaking and begging me to let it go. I could barely feel it in my hand as I tightened it around its collar. Well, wait! Adrian! Someone shouted. Let her go! No one's going to hurt you! Please! I turned my head to see a familiar face of Shapa. Her eyes widened in horror and desperation as I continued to hold the alien. After a few more moments, I let it go and rubbed the side of my forehead. There was a piece of rubber stuck to it, so I pulled it out. Several more were around my head, and I removed them one by one. I looked at Shapa, demanding an explanation. You were acting strangely in your sleep, she said. I called the medical staff, and they started monitoring you. Your brainwaves were somewhat frightening. We didn't know what it was that caused it. I just then noticed I was sweating and panting. I stood up and walked to a mirror. My face was red and my shirt was soaked. I quickly took it off and started drying myself with a towel. The alien doctors left the room, but Shapa stayed. She slowly walked toward me, still frightened by my outburst. "Are you alright?" she asked me. Was I? Was I really? Probably not. But I nodded my head anyway as I sat back on the bed. Shapa sat down next to me and took my hand. She put it on her head. She reminded me of a dog, a golden retriever. Not just in looks, but also her attitude. She could be shy and reserved, often awkward. But when she got used to me, she became somewhat happy and even caring. I did not doubt that the rich toad director sent her to be my therapy pet or something, but I saw her as more than that. She was smart, organised, and genuinely seemed interested in helping me. The first time I rubbed her fur, I hesitated a lot. Shapa wasn't and isn't an animal. She's a person. I couldn't treat her like a dog. And yet she didn't mind and even encouraged me to continue. Even now, I don't know if she's actually fond of this or not. Our time was cut short when the door opened and a familiar bloated shape walked in.
"There he is," Coblo shouted in excitement. "There's my champion. I heard the medical staff gave you trouble. Just say the word and I'll have them scrubbing the lower decks of the docking bay."
"Everything is fine," Shapa said. "No need for any scrubbing."
"Excellent. Now, on to the good news. Your fight against Koldar was seen by the entire sector. I've been getting calls non-stop ever since you caved that ape's head in. Oh, how spectacular that was."
Caved his head in? How about I cleave yours off? That fight was no joke. I'd be lying if I said it wasn't a rush. My gut still felt sore after his punch. His fists felt like bricks when they connected. No surprise there, I guess. His face, on the other hand, was surprisingly soft though. A few good hits made him lose his balance. It was then that he realised he was going to lose. But by then it was too late. Once I did enough damage, he went wild, and then all I had to do was finish it.
I even got calls from 3 other of my fellow leaders. They're begging for me to let them meet you. I'm hosting a party in honour of your first victory in 3 days. By then, I'm sure the others will be in the system. They'll probably bring their fighters along with them, so it'll be an excellent opportunity for you.
"Which leaders, if I may ask, sir?" Shapa asked.
Kataranga Shipping, Topul Electronic, and Kambul Dual Heavy Arms. I have to admit, the Cantalayans are a surprise. They usually keep to themselves. This should be interesting. Make sure to read up on them. I don't want to get embarrassed."
"Yes, sir," Shapa said. "I'll make sure he's ready."
"Terrific. See to it then. I have much to do and much to prepare. 3 days, remember that."
Coblo left the room and Shapa growled a little. "Bloated toad, treating you like a damn trophy." Her attitude really has changed. Coblo's mentality didn't surprise me. If anything, it's justified. He owned me, for the lack of a better term. Of course, he'd want to show me off. On the other hand, it was a good opportunity. Chances are I was going to fight them sooner or later. At least now I could get a measure. 3 days. I'll have a lot to learn. "Don't worry," Shapa said as she grabbed my hand. "You won't need to do or say anything. I'll be your voice." This was strangely comforting. I felt more at peace when I was like this. Is it because she was like a dog? A woman? Because she genuinely cared? I don't know. And it didn't matter right now. I stood up and walked over to the desk where the tablet was. I typed in a few words and showed it to Shapa. We need to start now. Learning? She asked, and I nodded. Alright, what do you want to know first? That's how we spent our time, studying. I never went to a real school, so the act of learning was a learning experience in itself. The more she showed me, the more I became fascinated, but also frightened. I always knew the galaxy was big, but I never thought it was this massive. Hundreds of species over thousands of planets, something many of us back home believed to be impossible and just a work of fiction. Whether I should be glad or concerned was a dilemma for me. If they could just show up and kidnap me, they could just as easily send more and more aliens over there. The possibility of an invasion lingered on my mind for quite a while. Damn it, that was a headache. And hell, for all I knew, there could be more humans out there. Each one owned by some egotistical corporal fuck that wants to keep them a secret. I prayed that wasn't the case. Not just for my sake, but for theirs as well. If we were forced to fight, I wouldn't hold back. 3 days passed rather quickly, and it was time to see the other aliens. One of Coblo's secretaries called Sharpa and me to the entrance of the main hall. The tailors of this place remade the clothes I was in when the lemurs took me, but they felt different. My army boots were softer, and my jacket hung a little more loosely on my shoulders. Not to mention the material, while aesthetically the same, felt different to the touch. Sharpa looked nice. Her red and black dress went well with her golden fur. She kept saying how it was uncomfortable, not the dress itself, but the idea of wearing it. She preferred simple and humble things, so wearing a dress this exotic felt foreign to her. I reassured her, saying how good she looked in hopes that it would ease her mind during the party. Coblo was already waiting for us in front of the door. He was in his trademark suit with his arms crossed behind his back.
Alright, this is it, he spoke. Be on your best behaviour and do as I say. Under no circumstances should a fight break out. Do you all understand?
We both nodded, and Coblo then opened the door. The hall wasn't packed with people per se, mainly because it was so large. A few hundred people were probably there. Drones buzzed around and served food and drinks while music played over the speakers. Already I was overwhelmed by the sheer diversity of the crowd. There were tall and lanky aliens as well as short and broad ones, along with everything in between. Some were blue, some brown, some red, and even orange and yellow. Some had scales and long teeth, while others had fur. A few looked like crustaceans with 2 legs. I swore I even saw a fucking centaur and a half-griffin. In one of the corners, I saw the oh-so-familiar lizards, scallions. I looked at them with disdain. Those things tried to kill me. Then again, those ones were pirates. They looked back at me in confusion and awe. They weren't the only ones. Most of the aliens were smaller than me in one sense or another. The ones that shared the most similarities with me gave me the most questioning looks. By most similarities, I mean they were bipedal, walked upright, and had no animalistic features as more than half of the others did. That was something I noticed rather quickly. Most of the aliens looked like animal and human hybrids. Some looked more like animals than others. There were even some fish that had tanks of water on the backs of their robot suits. At this point, I would hit myself to see if I'm dreaming, but I already knew I wasn't. This was real. This place, these people, all of it.
Ah, my friends, Coblo suddenly exclaimed. I am so glad that you could make it. I must confess, when I received your call, I was rather skeptical, shall we say.
You would be, the alien in the middle spoke. A Malnian, Sharpa told me, grey-skinned, bald, medium height, with lanky four-fingered limbs. His eyes were orange with black pupils, and his lips were rather thin. His most distinguishable features were the flaps on the sides of his neck. I had no idea what they were meant for, and frankly, I didn't care. This one was Halima Katarega, the director of Katarega Shipping. "A luxurious event you organised here, though it is a bit much for such a small victory." Koblo smirked at that.
"Well, it is the first victory for my newest fighter."
"Speaking of which," the smallest alien spoke, "where is he?" This one was a Condoli. I remember these gremlins, friendly and curious. This one was Zanti Zadao, the director of Tapul Electronic. Finally, someone who didn't treat their company like a damn dynasty. She rode a two-legged walker like someone would a horse. This was so she could speak eye to eye with people. I stepped forward and Shapa spoke for me. "Adrian Lopez the Goliath. It is a word for someone very large and powerful. His planet is unknown." "A fitting title," Zanti said. "I saw your match with Koldor. Very impressive." I nodded in response.
"Can you not speak?"
Halima asked. "No," Shapa said. "His voice box is very damaged and his anatomy is very foreign. It would be difficult to fix it." That was a lie. The fat toads didn't want me to speak. Just tell them that.
"Unfortunate,"
Halima said.
"I would have loved to hear more about your planet and people." "There will be time for that," Koblo said. "Now, where's Kanan?"
"Right here," a voice spoke from the right, and we turned to see a bulky brown alien approach. Kanan Buldul, director of the Khan Buldul Heavy Arms, a weapons manufacturer, the biggest in the conglomerate. He was a Kintalan, tall, broad, with two large three-fingered arms. His legs were a bit short for someone of his size. He had 4 red eyes and pointy ears along with a wide mouth. The top of his head was level with my eyes, but we were about the same build.
"Big,"
he said as his eyes trailed my body.
"Take that thing off."
I hesitated for a moment before looking back at Koblo. He nodded his fat head and I did as I was told.
"And that,"
Kanan said, pointing at my shirt. I complied. Now everyone was staring at me, at my scars and tattoos. Kanan gripped different parts of my upper body with his large hands and bumped my chest.
"Strong, sturdy, I like it. What do you think, Magala?"
Another Kintalan approached. This one was larger. Shapa told me that the female Kintalans were larger than the males. When she got close to me, my eyes were levelled with her throat. It was the first alien I saw that was objectively bigger than me in every sense. She looked down into my eyes and smirked before grabbing my shoulder and squeezing it. It hurt a lot, but I didn't let it show. I stared back at her, unflinching, unmoving. "Not bad," she said in a deep voice. "Better than most, anyway."
"Can you take him?"
Kanan asked. She contemplated it, so it seemed. Then she smirked again and mockingly lowered her head toward me. "No problem." She probably could. Koldor might have been tough, but this one was a different beast altogether. If I ever had to fight her, I'd be severely disadvantaged.
"Oh, what do we have here?"
I heard a voice behind me as I put my shirt back on. A Kaislan was talking to Shapa, one of her people, but he looked different, more like a wolf than a dog. He kept trailing his hands all over her body and whispering something into her ears. She looked uncomfortable, so I stepped in and grabbed his arm. He looked up at me with a casual look.
"And you are?"
"Adrian Lopez," Shapa said immediately. "Octon Corporation's fighter."
"Really now?"
he asked in a mocking tone.
"You're the one who fought Kuldar, right?"
"I heard you beat his face hard. His head turned into a bowl. His brain literally got squeezed out of his ears. Wow, was that hilarious or what?" This guy seemed like a complete douchebag. I'd like nothing more than to beat his face in too. As if he read my mind, The smug smile faded away and he looked at me with a predatory grin, like he was about to pounce on me.
"That's enough,"
Halimar said. "Oh, come on, boss," the Kaizen whined. "I just wanted to have some fun."
"You can have your fun elsewhere. This event was organised for that purpose."
"Fine," he said, and I let go of his hand. "I'll be seeing you, Lopez."
"We should all go enjoy ourselves," Cobbler said. "Business can wait."
"Sure," Kanan exclaimed. "Where's your booze?" One of the servants led him and his fighter down to another corner of the hall. I turned around to look at Sharpa, who seemed nervous and uncomfortable. I put my hand on her shoulder and looked her in the eyes. She smiled back and held my hand. The rest of the night went alright. More introductions with other fighters. Most of them didn't bother me, but there were a few I kept an image of in my mind. Those would prove to be the biggest challenge. It didn't in the end. This is war, like every other I've fought, and like those, I'll win.